Thank you for doing that. Good evening. This is the February 20th, 2024 meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust. And with us this evening, we have a quorum of members, including Sue, Mark Rambacher, Mark Montanari, Bartlett Harvey, Anna Houston, and we have Liz Transiak with us and Maren Tuhill as well. So welcome everyone to the meeting. I have not heard from Angus or Matthew, so hopefully they will join us in progress. So the first item on our agenda is Elder and Human Services, our LRAP program. And as I understand from Maren's email, we do not have any new applicants this time around. Is that correct? Yep. Okay. But we did want to talk about updating the policy on the timing of the year's anniversary. So one of the things that we have gotten to, the point where we are now, is that one particular applicant is entering their 5th year of assistance. And so I'm opening it up to any member who would like to opine on what we should be doing about the situation. And Liz, if you have thoughts as well, but it seems that if participants are eligible for a maximum of 5 years of assistance, that would be then in line with where we are today, but also it would allow for any future residents to be able to get assistance for that period of time. It was my understanding, I could be wrong, that LRAP was originally intended to be short-term assistance. And so with that, I was thinking that 5 years might be kind of like the max point. And then from a timing perspective, I just don't see any way around making it whatever their program date is, rather than saying this is an entry point and you have to enter only at this time, because a family could very well be in great need and 6 months out from the timing. So those are kind of my thoughts, but I'd love to hear Liz and others as well. Welcome, Matthew.
Do you mind if I jump in a little bit?
Yes, please go ahead.
I haven't been in the conversation really up until this point, but I think Nicole has said that, or relayed this information already, but the people who are in this program, their circumstances are not changing anytime soon. They're on fixed incomes, they are disabled, they're already taking advantage of absolutely every benefit program that they are eligible for. So changing the timeline or rolling it back in any sort of way is not beneficial to these people. These are truly people who do need assistance. As far as the date of admission, I prefer the rolling admission, exactly for the reason that you mentioned. People's circumstances do change at any time. Everyone, like not everyone, but a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and they're one, crisis or accident away from, being in a crisis situation financially. So I prefer the rolling admissions for that reason.
Okay, thank you. And other members, what are your thoughts on this?
So I agree that we should do rolling admissions, but I think that we should do them so that they all line up on a fiscal boundary at a certain point, right? So if someone came up today and wanted at this meeting and wanted an LRAP, we'd either give them through July 1st or the following July 1st, whatever we decided based on policy, so that all of them end up lining up, so that if we ever get into the situation where we have more applicants than we have money for, you can actually compare them when they're all up together. Right now, when it's a rolling admission, we could be giving money to someone now for the next year, and then someone else comes up for this we determined also needed the money or was more qualified, and there's no way of comparing them because you already committed for a year. Right, so it would be nice to line up the dates, right? And as far as the 5 year, part of the policy says you have to have a plan for transitioning off of the assistance. So if that could be going into some other, whether it's Pine Tree or some other assistance that might take a long time to get into, but there should be a plan in place. Especially if people we know their situations not going to improve, then they should be make sure that they're taking full advantage of any of those plans as soon as possible, so that we're not waiting 3 years before they start to find, start to get applications in for things that take many years.
Right, and I believe almost all are on the CHAMP list and waiting for housing, different subsidized options for housing. It's just, I mean, we have people right now who are living in very not great situations and are on the waiting list, or are, they have eviction notices, or they're about to be given a shelter list. And I mean, even being priority or being in dire straits, the wait list is still the wait list. So unfortunately, these people can't just call up Pine Tree Park.
Right. I'm not suggesting that we, kick people off while they're on the wait list. I'm suggesting that we make sure that they're on the wait list as early as possible, with knowing that, and then we know going in that they're going to be potentially a longer term applicant.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we definitely do that as part of our due diligence, is making sure that they are on these housing lists while applying for this program.
Sounds like what you're saying, Mark, is that it needs to be a requirement that as soon as they receive funding from the trust, that they are also on the list at the same time.
Yes.
Okay.
Or for that class of applicant, right? I mean, there's people that truly are the short-term applicants, and those don't necessarily have to be on the list. They need to be, doing whatever they have to do to show progress in their situation, right? But those that, progress means you're now, number 900 on the wait list rather than number 1,000, right? It just means that, at least you're on the wait list early, so that, after 3 or 5 years, there may be hope of transitioning off, right?
Sue?
Yeah, well, making that a requirement is already part of, it doesn't say to be on the list, but it's part of being accepted into the LRAP, is that they have to work with the outreach counselors. And I think we should be supporting the professionals to make the decision that they're working with these people for their entire, or the whole picture of their finances. Not just, let's get them on a list. I agree they should be, but I trust the professionals to do that right at the beginning. And the question for Mark, when you're saying that if somebody were to apply now, let's say someone applied now and got LRAP assistance, we would only be guaranteeing it to them not for a year, but until the July 1st fiscal year, and then July 1st, it would.
So yeah, so we would either pick that we'd give them it through this July 1st or the following July 1st, so that we'd end up more lining applications up, right? I agree now, giving them through July 1st is a very short term. So at a certain point, you're going to say that if you're in now, we'll give it to you longer term, because we're thinking you're going to be needy match it as well as the current applicants that are coming up. But it would be nice to kind of help line them up a little better, because if we actually ever hit our cap, and someone came along now, you have no way of necessarily evaluating them. And then over the course of the year, if we have extra money, if we haven't hit our cap, we can still do the rolling thing. But at a certain point, you say the rolling is for a longer period or shorter period, so. Everyone gets that evaluated individually right now, right?
Right.
Which is okay because there's not too many, but if we ever hit the actual quota, there's no way of evaluating them against each other because they're all on different timelines.
I guess I kind of agree with Sue. And first of all, thank God we never make the quota. That means there's not as many people that are needing our assistance as we had originally thought six years ago. I think when we started all of this, I think when we first started it, the wait list to get into Pine Tree Park was over 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. Liz, what is it now? It's probably 5, 6 years.
I think it's 11.
11 years. So we're giving people a 5-year safety net when and we're talking about they have to be on the program. And when in reality, it's going to take 6 more years after they're done with us to even get a shot at Pine Tree Park. I guess I have a problem with if you're starting somebody down the road and you're just going to say after 4 or 5 years or 3 years, I think it was our original, that, okay, we've done the best we can. We didn't get in it for that reason. We got in it to help people. And there are people, this is the only case that's 5 years. It's an extraordinary case. I think we should just be flexible enough and that's why I think we all started when we did it, was to try to help people. It's not like it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. We've had 50,000 set aside. We've never even come close to using half of it, which thank God we haven't. If the town of Littleton can't support a family for an extra year because they're all disabled and don't have a place to live and are going to be living out on the street, then shame on the town of Littleton. I just think we should continue it. I don't think we should cap it at 5 years. I think we should just, on a case-by-case basis, as the need is there, and we're not kicking anybody off that legitimately needs a spot as well. I think we should extend it for as long as people need the help. That's just my personal take on it.
I think also Bartlett and I can affirm that CHAMP is a terrible, terrible system that is useless. No, I mean, like, we've talked to Jamie Eldridge and Jim Arciero about it. It is dysfunctional, I would say, at best. And I think that, like, I would not be surprised at all if there are people who wait longer than 5 years for any kind of subsidized housing for the state, despite being eminently qualified. So I think that cutting people off, we can't rely on that safety net, I guess is what I'm saying. And what we're offering is a pittance compared to, an affordable apartment. But it doesn't, I agree with Mark. Like, I can see this is a slippery slope where suddenly our entire budget is taken up with LRAP payments, but we're not there yet. And I don't see a reason to cut anyone off at this time.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think I would suggest that we change our policy to not have a time limit and to rely on Elder Human Services to determine which people are going to be permanent and which people are, 35 and got fired from a job and they have 2 months of no income and then they get another job. I mean, those are two different groups of people. And that's one of the determinations that Liz and her team would make.
I think we've heard from everyone. So at this point then, can we go ahead and get a motion from somebody for wanting to be able to have no limit?
I'll make the motion that we go on a case-by-case basis with no expiration date, no 5-year, no expiration date at all. That would take each case on a case-by-case basis and keep them open until the situation gets better and people don't need our assistance anymore.
Second.
Diluted or nothing.
Okay, so Mark made the motion and Matthew seconded. Sue, how do you vote on this motion?
Yes. Yes.
Mark Montanari,
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Mark Rambacher,
Yes.
and Matthew,
Yes.
and Anna's a yes. Okay.
Great.
And then to the second point about, Mark, do you want to make a motion about the timing?
I'd like to say that for another meeting and figure out how to write it in a real policy to do that, if that's okay. So I agree with what Mark Montanari has been saying, that, it's great to do these. It's great that we've never used all of the funds we have. The concern is what happens if we ever hit that situation, right? So that's when we need to worry about lining these up better. So I'd like to research it a little more and come back with something a little more formal, if that's okay.
I think, if that circumstance occurs, that we have more applicants than we can fund, then it would be worthwhile looking at that or changing to that policy, or having a way that we can compare them against each other. I don't think it's necessary now. So if you want to come back later, I think that would be okay.
So another general question is, should we be still funding at this level, or should we up the level we're funding it at too, right? A lot of towns are doing 500.
Yeah.
So-
Westford just increased theirs from 500, I believe, up to 750 or something.
I'd be curious, Liz, what you think about, like, whether that would make a substantial difference or if it's still not enough.
I think any increase would make a substantial difference for these people. I would definitely vote in favor of an increase, but I'd like to think about what is actually meaningful. Review these folks' income and kind of get a better sense of the bigger picture for the most needy, vulnerable folks we're working with. Yeah, any increase would, I wouldn't say, I mean, not maybe life-changing, but significant help.
So how much time do you think you'd need to be able to come back to us with a recommendation?
I can come to your next meeting, whenever that is.
Can I ask a question how the money works? So we have CPC funds, right? We have I think we have 900,000, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 900,000 of CPC funds. Does that make money? I mean, I'm assuming that we've invested it, that it's an interest-bearing account, so that our 900 is probably making 5%, 4%. So it's not like we're taxing the principal of what we're using. We're probably just spending the interest every year on the fund. So I think it's probably a no-brainer that we could increase the amount of money we give out, just based on the fact that we're getting more money every year, and we're making money on the money that we have already. So, I don't think it's nice what we do, but I think if we're going to really truly make a dent, I agree with Liz. Probably doubling it would be the least we could, the least we should be doing. I'm sure we can afford that, but.
I think when we get to the annual report, we'll see that there's a line in there where we've received some interest on our funds.
And not only that, some of the projects that we've done, we've gotten funding from, like Mr. Guthrie's 50,000, whatever it is. That went through Affordable Housing Trust. So the planning board is always trying to augment what the Affordable Housing Trust Affordable Housing Trust account has in it, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. So we never have enough money, but we're not in dire. I don't think we're in dire straits of running out of money right now. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to put together some more information, kind of get a general profile of the folks and come back to you.
Great.
I think that would be really helpful because, as we all know, there's been a lot of cost increase to living. So being able to find out what would be the sweet spot would be good. Thank you for doing that.
I'll work with Liz on that.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, we'll make sure to get you on the agenda for that for next time. Okay, so welcome, Angus. and we have a guest as well, Carolyn Mueller. Um, so let's see, where are we then? Anything else on item number 2 around EHS and LRAP? Nope. Okay. That will keep moving along. So we have the 2023 annual report. You know, that's the page front and back that gets put into the town annual report and distributed at town meeting in the spring. So that was sent out to everybody. And I think my comments are related to the goals for 2024. I wanted to hear from you all what you think our goals should be for 2024, whether we make them just the generic 5 that we have, or whether we want to be very specific about what we'd like to accomplish this year. So what are your thoughts about the report as a whole? Any comments, changes, and then what would you like to do about the goals?
I think it's a good annual report. I would like to see some specific actions on the Durkee farm and the Tehadawon property, start those projects operating.
Okay, great. Who else?
I think that's the only thing really before us. We're doing what we can with the LRAP and that, and the only thing we have that's an action is what are we going to do, disposition of what we're going to do with Durkee, and trying to get a partner for the Tehadawon duplex or 3-unit or 4-unit, whatever we're going to build up there.
Okay.
I would suggest, obviously, that those are, or I would say those are our 2 most important goals. So maybe move them up in the bullet list, have them be the first 2.
I would also suggest.
I know
making-
they're not numbered, but people read it that way.
Right.
Can I suggest we make them stronger too, rather than say move forward on development of the 2 units, say develop 2 units? And on the Durkee, we need to develop a plan for the Durkee farmhouse, right?
Well, actually, I think, well, we'll get into this later, obviously, but I think if we're looking at the next year, Maren, can you just confirm the timing of the goals? Are we talking about calendar year 2024? Are we talking fiscal year 24? And isn't fiscal year 24 about to end in July? Because that whole timing thing always throws me off.
Right. The annual report is a calendar year. If you show any fiscal information, then that's the fiscal year. So any goals would be on a calendar year.
Okay, thank you. So that means what do we think we'll actually accomplish this calendar year from now until December 31, 2024? And so from that standpoint, Mark, while I'd like to put something stronger in here, I think we also need to be realistic about, what we can accomplish.
But moving forward isn't really, it's so wishy-washy. It's like we're never moving backwards on these things. You're always, so it's not really, it's a goal that you've already accomplished before you've done anything, right? So it needs to be a little more concrete, I think. I mean, maybe what I said was too concrete or too ambitious, but, I mean.
So with Durkee as an example, is it to finalize the disposition of the Durkee farm? I mean, I think we can do that in this year.
Make a decision about what's going to happen to it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was saying, yeah, I said develop a plan for the Durkee farmhouse. That's, yeah. I mean, so we're saying the same thing and just in different terms, I
Right.
think.
Okay. And then for Tehadawon?
Well, If we don't think it can be developed, do we think we can at least have an agreement for development?
An agreement for development in place?
Yeah, I mean, a contract, whatever we want to call it, a contract, you know. Yeah, something like that. Someone can wordsmith me on this, what the exact wording should be.
Okay. And then continue supporting the LRAP program, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Continue supporting and
I might want to be specific enough on the LRAP to say we want, you know, we by the end of the year, we will have increased the payout as a goal.
continue supporting the LRAP and
How about support and expand the LRAP program?
well, it's not really expanding. It's
Enhance.
enhance, yeah,
Okay.
supporting and enhance the LRAP program. Okay. All right, so we're in agreement with those three. And those are in reference to the acquire and create affordable housing. What about anything under procuring funding? Maren had added in seek additional funding and new funding sources for the LAHT.
Well, we talked about that and we put it in the action plan,
Yeah.
in the 5-year action plan. I know.
But do we think we'll be doing anything significant on that this year?
Well, I was kind of wondering where, reaching out to CPC for the annual request, if that fell into that, or if you wanted to, how you wanted to address that.
Oh, okay. So, I think what we talked about was formalizing our relationship with CPC. I think that that's something that we should consider doing in this calendar year so that there's no more question about how that works. Folks think that's a good to have?
Mhm.
Seeking other sources of money is always a good idea. In the past, a lot of it came through the efforts of Keith Bergman, and he's not here anymore. And you know, that was all done off stage as far as we were concerned. I mean, that money would just show up. And I don't know if anybody in the select board or in the town administration office is willing to do that.
So I'm guessing you're referring to the blended CPA funds?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I would be guessing on where that falls in the budget process right now.
So there are blended funds for this year.
Mm.
In the coming fiscal year, there is the plan for that.
So would it be helpful for the Affordable Housing Trust to continue to advocate for that? Trying to think of some wording that would, provide some positive reinforcement for it.
Well, so far we have memorialized a relationship for funding from the CPC, and do we want to just add to that one or make it separate? Bartlett, what do you think?
Well, I don't see any harm in including the select board and the town administration as, potential sources of blended funds for either, I mean, for us through the community preservation.
And,
Does that,
it's stronger than inquire. We want to make a determination whether or not that's going to be possible. Right?
What about, the governor has been talking about housing and everything else, and the stuff that I've read is that there's gonna be $4.5 billion worth of funding, that the governor's office is gonna start releasing in the next couple of years for affordable housing, for senior housing and everything else. Shouldn't we be, following up on how we have a chance to go for those kind of grants? I know we go for every grant known to man. The town of Littleton has always been very good about looking for grant money. Shouldn't we be trying to get, I know it hasn't been released yet, but shouldn't we be thinking about how we're going to be in the front of that one as well? I mean, that goes without saying that we have to be in good graces with the governor. So our MBTA communities thing we have to get that done. But the talk that I've been hearing from everybody else is that the cities and towns that do it are going to be front and center for all this money that the governor's going to start making available for all different housing programs. So we should be right there with our, looking for money like everybody else.
So what about words like investigate and ensure we're part of the new funding from Governor Healy?
Myron, you can kind of address that one-stop
Mhm.
program that they're touting right now. What do we call it and how do we get on it? Well, we're on it, but
Right. So I was just considering the process. Any application from the town, including the Affordable Housing Trust, has to be signed off by the chair of the select board. So is it a matter of continue to work with select board for grant funding, to support development of affordable housing? Or is it, do you want to key on development, or do you want to key on maintaining, or
well, I would say development of it, because most of our affordable housing, as I said earlier, was the result of the 40Bs that came in, and that's how we got the affordable. I think if we're really trying to create more affordable housing, it's going to come either in a partnership with somebody who's coming to Littleton and wants to do affordable, or some hybrid from the town that either involves money, land, a combination of both, or something like that, if we truly want senior housing, affordable housing, or something like that. So I think we should be doing whatever we can to promote Littleton and to put ourselves in the best position moving forward with funds that are available. Hopefully funds are available. Even if we do it on a small scale, and I know we haven't talked about the disposition of Durkee, but maybe we can get some funds from the governor's office to do 5 or 6 affordable units there, with 8 or 10, whatever the land ultimately supports. But it'd be nice to know that we have at least some money there to do it.
So what about promote Littleton for future state funding
Sure, that sounds good.
or future state funds?
Mm.
Okay. All right, so we have 5 that I think I've heard and are doable. Let me just recap. So under goal number 1 for money, it's memorialize the relationship for funding from the CPC, as well as promote Littleton for future state funds. Under goal number 2, it's develop a plan for disposition of Durkee Farm and barn, or do we want to say just the Durkee parcel?
Durkee parcel, I think.
Parcel. And then also within goal number 2 is have an agreement for development in place for, what is it, 161 Tehadawon. Then
Yeah, I don't
don't have anything under number 3, which is related to preserving existing, and that's fine. Number 4, we have continue supporting and enhance the LRAP program, and then we don't have anything specific for number 5. So I think these 5 are fine. Was everybody else good with that?
Mhm.
All right. Sweet. Let's get those. I'll send those over to Lucia, unless Maren, you got them down, and she can go ahead and include them in the final document. Any other comments or changes for that annual report, or is everybody good on it? Okay, we're good. All right. So let's move on to number 4 on the agenda, our action plan and financials. So Bartlett, Lucia, Michelle from finance, and I met last week, I believe, because the October figures weren't accurate. They really weren't tying. And so we went through every revenue item and expense item to try to figure it out. And I just got data this afternoon and haven't really reviewed it on a line item basis, but I wanted to show you all what I was referencing. So Maren, are you able to show what we got today?
You're muted.
I was being very agreeable. Yeah, I'll try to share it, but meanwhile, Angus does have his hand raised.
Angus, yes,
Yes,
go
I'm
ahead.
so sorry about that. I realized I was muted myself. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the goals. The last item there, the work with developers to increase the number of affordable units and for deeper affordability. We do have a lot of unfinished business in Littleton. For instance, I do remember when they put the new area where you got Market Basket and the cinemas and whatnot. There was talk about expanding that, and there was also a comment about affordable housing units over there. Does anybody know when that expansion will happen? I mean, if you're driving through, you could see that there are signs that potentially an expansion may happen. Perhaps Maren might enlighten us if she does know something, and perhaps there also may be the answer to there being some more units for the elders and for affordable units.
So the Point has a private wastewater treatment system on site. They just expanded it to meet DEP's requirement for all of their current uses. If they're looking to expand further, they would have to put several $1 million into upgrading that wastewater treatment plant again. They do have the capabilities to do that, but I don't think there's the political will at the moment to push more. Well, political will may not be the right word for it, but I haven't heard that there are a lot of market opportunities for additional development there. But I think the planning board's certainly in a position to respond if that request does come in.
Yeah, I think Maren hit it right on the head. It's a septic driven issue. If they could tie into town sewer, that'd be great. Then they'd be interested. They also had talked about putting the second hotel up there, and they don't have enough sewage to do that. So I don't think you're gonna see any more any kind of housing up there. I think he would embrace it if he could, but financially he can't afford to do it.
Mm.
Yep.
Thank you.
Certainly. Good question. Thank you, Angus.
Okay, so hopefully you can see the quarterly report.
Yes, thank you, Maren, for bringing it up. So the numbers that we are focusing on right now in front of us are the end of fiscal year 23. So it would be June 30th, 2023. And that's because we needed to get these numbers finalized for the annual report. As you can see, this at the very top goes all the way back to 2019. So it gives us a number of $1.231 million. And then additional funding from gifts and non-CPC, bringing us to 1.261 million. Previously, when we had numbers, they were a little bit different than that. And then when we looked at expenses for this particular time period ending June 30th, 2023, expenses are 346,000. And so that number that wasn't tying was the one right below that where it says current available funds. So if you subtract out 346 from 1.261 million, you get that 915,000. However, total funds available are actually 916,000, which is a difference of about $1,000, which is much better than we were before. When we went in to talk with Michelle, the numbers were off by like 100,000. So
that $1,000 is still a discrepancy that needs to be resolved?
yes.
Okay. Well, it's pretty close.
And does anyone have any questions about what we're doing with finance, just to try to make sure that all of our numbers are tying together?
Well, I just want to point out that there is a interest earned on trust funds of $28,000. So that is in a interest-bearing account.
That's not very much interest over 4 years, though.
It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So what I will do is I will confirm with Michelle probably tomorrow on these figures, and based off of these numbers, what we have done in past years, you can see it from the annual report that was sent to us by Lucia. We tend to put in just the numbers for the last fiscal period. And so that would be the expenditures in that right-hand column that says FY expenditures. And it's actually, yeah, any revenue that came in and any expenditures. And then we would give the current available funds as of June 30th, 2023. So I just want to ask Michelle, do we use a 915 figure or the 916 figure? Is everyone good with that?
So just to be clear, if looking at these numbers, we had $115,798 coming in this year, and we spent $57,236 and 50 cents. Is that correct?
Yeah, 58,711. Yeah, exactly.
How did we spend 58 when the year-to-date expenses are 57?
Hold on a second. That might be where we're off. Hold on. Let me just check that number real quick. Again, I just got these this afternoon and I haven't had a chance to look at them with a fine-tooth comb. 8, 7, 11. Yeah, let me ask her because that's off by 1475, not the 1067. So the
Yeah,
town,
and we know that one of the issues we're dealing with is the last two versions of account numbers are different just because the updates to Munis. And it's, I know Lucy has spent an inordinate amount of time trying to get this right. So.
Yeah, so when we were sitting there with Michelle, she was bringing up each of the actual, if you will, revenue or expense items, and we were taking a look at the actual documentation behind it, going all the way back to the actual town meeting report to see what was voted on and how it was voted. So if everybody is okay, and Bartlett, you can join me as well if you'd like. I just want to confirm if we're going to be using, as you pointed out, Mark, that 58 figure or the 57 figure, and then how do we reconcile the fact that we're still off by 1,000?
Yeah, I'm also not sure. I mean, in that expenses, those previous quarter and the balance, just there's just nothing jives there, right? The housing consultant says 15,000, we spent 6140, and then the balance is 15,000. It doesn't make sense. And then, yeah. I'm just having trouble doing any of these math and the math on any of these.
Yep.
I'm assuming the overall expenses doesn't matter. That's like since the beginning of time, but the numbers just don't add up if those are really previous quarter.
But here's the thing, right? The reason why we went back to the beginning of time, as you just said, is because somewhere along the way, the numbers were wrong and we needed to make sure to fix them. And so we just need to make sure that once those back in time numbers are correct, then that means the current fiscal year numbers should be able to be easier to correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then once we finish with these being June 30th, 2023, next I'm going to ask if Lucia and Michelle can work on where we are year to date, so that then that brings us to where we are now. Okay.
So then my next question would be for the FY25 fiscal year that's coming up. Do we have a budget? Like these numbers have a budget for housing consulting, LRAP payments, ERAP, MRAP, and that type of thing. Do we have a budget? Or when are we coming up with a budget?
Yeah, actually, the trust usually votes in at their June meeting for what you want to set aside for the next fiscal year for each type of account.
Okay.
Did I say that correctly? I hope I did.
Yes. Yeah, and if you feel like we need to vote on it sooner than that, we can as well.
Mhm.
All right, so I just wanted everyone to come up to speed with where we are with respect to the data and why we had to go back to the beginning, because we needed to find where the errors were. And now for this particular fiscal year, I need to make sure to confirm with Michelle which of these figures to use. So I'll touch base with her in the morning. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Thank you, Maren, for putting that up there. All right. So along the same lines of the financials, Carolyn Mueller from CPC is here. I don't know if she wants to say anything, but I had requested that we move forward and talk with the other boards and committees that are relevant to our work. And one of those is CPC. And what I would like to do is meet with them at their next meeting, if they'll have us, on Wednesday, March 20th. So that's a day after our next meeting. So that works well to be able to finalize anything we want to talk about. But from my perspective, I think the purpose would be to present them with the action plan and also make a formal request to continue to fund the trust in the same process that we've had. And if there are any modifications we want to make to that process, then now is the time to do it. I think memorializing it will be important so that if we get asked by FinCom or any other group about what that looks like, we can actually hand them a document. So what do folks think?
Be good to do that.
Mhm.
And so far, it's been sort of an informal policy that I go in community preservation meetings and yell about housing, and they give me and I tell them I want the whole bucket, and they generally transfer it. So I think putting that in writing as a request would make sense.
And that's something that maybe, if you want to work on that, maybe that's something we can work on and then present it to everybody here on the 19th.
Okay.
For our next meeting. Okay. Carolyn, would you like to say anything about this?
Yes, so we're going to talk about it at our meeting tomorrow as well. I put it on our agenda. Just FinCom is still not comfortable with us continuing the sweep to the Affordable Housing Trust. They reiterated again at the FinCom meeting that we were at last month. So I think we're going to really need to have to take a look at how we do things. And I think getting that document together, I think would be a good idea and I think we're supposed to have it anyways on CPC rules or CPA rules to have a formal, like a grant agreement between the two groups. But we're going to have to try to figure something out to either, if we want to continue the way we've been going, we really need to justify it. Because I have a feeling that if we just say it's going to be done, that the finance committee is going to, at town meeting, vote, they won't recommend it.
Do we know what the pushback reason is on the things that have been done?
I think it's the same thing, that they don't feel that you have a plan for that money and that we're just giving you the money and you're sitting on it. They would rather have it sit in CPA rather than the Affordable Housing Trust. And I don't know if it's just, historic. I don't think they really knew. I was going to say distrust, but I don't think that's the right word. I think they just didn't know what your goals were. And now that you're doing that, putting that out a little bit more, maybe there'll be a little bit more trust between FinCom and the whole process. But I'm not sure you're at that right now.
Well, I think where we are right now is being able to define, as you sat in on the conversation, we need to be able to define with certainty how much money we have.
Yeah.
And then we have our action plan of the things that we know that need to take place over the next 5 years. And then if we need to allocate the funds accordingly, then that would be something else that we could do. Because again, it hasn't been done over the last 5 years, and now FinCom is pressing on that. And so they are part of the list of groups that we would like to be able to go and talk with. So we just need to find the right time to do that as well, preferably with select board at the meeting as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just, like I say, the last meeting that we were at, if you watch the tape, you'll see that they were still not on board with us giving you the entire pot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But we will be talking about that tomorrow and try to figure out, where we stand and how we want to do it. It is our committee after all, but again, they can always not recommend it.
Well, and that's one of those things that, each committee, your committee, the trust, they're independent, if you will. And so from that standpoint, I would recommend that each of our respective committees, boards makes the best determination based off of what we recommend.
Agreed.
So thank you. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you so much for having us next month.
Yep.
And we'll look forward to being there.
Yes, we'll put you on the list.
Thank you. And Maren, would you make sure that we can have that posted as a separate meeting as well in case multiple trust members want to attend?
Mm-hmm. Yep, will do.
So I can say what I think part of the finance committee's hesitancy is, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. Let's just say that the Tahadawan property, we're going to go off and develop it on our own. We're committing all of the funds. Habitat's not doing anything. So we're in for $500,000, $750,000. No one on this committee was elected to do that, and no one has basically, that's a lot of money for this committee to spend without town meeting approval, right? So if we kept it in the CPC bucket to move it out to do Tahadawan or these other big projects would require a town meeting vote, right? Which kind of makes sense for these big projects, and I think too. So I think some of the concern is we have a lot of money sitting there with no real town commitment on how we're going to spend it. So why should we keep putting more funds into that bucket? That's my understanding of the position from the finance committee. And for some of these things, I don't disagree with them. I don't know that we should be deciding to spend, large sums of money on individual projects without, going back to town meeting on it. But I don't know what large, we can debate what large means, but.
Well, I guess I would have to ask, where's their precedent? I mean, what have other towns done? Do we know from talking with, who is it, Stuart? Is that his name?
Saginaw.
Yeah, Saginaw, as to whether or not other towns funnel their decision-making from the trust to town meeting, or whether the trust makes a decision.
Well, Westford just did that with the property that they did. It went through town meeting. They gave the money to the Affordable Housing Trust to develop the project, a specific project, a specific sum at their town meeting for that. Is it Drew Farm or whatever?
Mhm.
So
Well, maybe that would be
was-
something to consider then, is for our meeting on the 19th, is actually having Stuart come to our meeting and talk about that specifically.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this whole notion of CPC and sending their money for housing over to the trust? Nope. Well, we will get through this and figure it out. So the last item under section 4 is around an article that Maren had sent to us, and more data around retiring in place. And so I find that this is something that I think it was Bartlett who or maybe Sue who brought it up as an idea, that could we help residents fix up their house so they could actually age in place. And so, Maren, thank you very much for finding that, because I think it's really exciting to see that something like that already exists. And so I wanted to just open it up to see what others thought about this idea, because it could very well go along with our goal number 4.
So I had a question for Maren on the article doesn't mention how it's funded. Can
Exactly.
you? So yeah. So I don't know that you can do CPC funds through that. You would have to have another funding source. Is that correct?
I don't know what their funding source is, but I do know that the town of Boxborough, the planner of Alex over there, has started to do a lot of research on various grant programs for affordable housing trusts. So hopefully we'll be able to piggyback on the work that he's doing and try to figure out a good recommendation. Because it was, I agree with you, Mark. It was my understanding that it was difficult to use CPC funds for individual homeowners, but if several communities have figured it out, let's do some learning.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and to the point of as an example, with the monies thus far that we have, there's $29,500 that didn't come from CPC.
You mean the interest money? I think that still counts.
Does it?
I would guess it does because it came from, yeah.
But does it? So again, having
It'd
Stuart,
be a good question.
Question.
But yeah.
other thoughts on this whole idea?
I'd like to pursue it. I think would be beneficial to help people, small repair or modification projects in their house. I think it would be great to be able to do that. I do think we ought to find out how to, what the rules are in terms of using trust money.
Okay. All right, I'll reach out to Stuart and ask him if he could be available at our next meeting to talk through the funding question with CPC and then also this notion of what could be done. Because I think, Bartlett, didn't you talk with him previously about this idea?
No, not about this. No.
About this? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Liz.
Several years ago, I had a meeting with Cindy Napoli, and we were exploring an idea similar to this at the time. And I thought there was something in the CPC guidelines that you could use the funds for critical home repairs. For residents, I have to look further into that. But the program in Norfolk, is that the town?
Norfolk. Yeah.
I can reach out to them as well. Some of the people involved in collaborating and making that were classmates of mine at Suffolk, so I think I can speak candidly with them about how they created it.
Yeah, that would be terrific. And then if you wouldn't mind keeping us in the loop on that, that would be great.
The LRAP goes to individuals, so in theory, it should be possible to direct other forms of help to individuals. But I think that there needs to be some clarity on it.
Yep, exactly. All right. Thoughts from anyone else?
It might be worth reaching out to Jim Arciero on it too, right? I mean, and see what is available there.
You are welcome to reach out, see if he responds.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move forward to item 5 on our agenda. So with the Durkee Farmhouse, I visited over the weekend and found that the house and barn are secured with plywood and there are locks on the doors. So I thanked Stephen Yanley and his team for all that work that was done. Now with the barn, the previous owner, Mr. Guthrie, has removed all of his belongings as we had requested. So now it's empty and the door needs to be secured. So Mr. Yanley said he would take care of that as well. So that's one part of that project that is taken care of for the most part. And then from our last meeting, we had talked about trying to determine the environmental position. And so Bartlett and I touched base with Conscom earlier this month, and they just asked that we make sure that for anything created in the future that we stay behind the appropriate setback, and they look forward to any future projects. And so Maren, I wanted to ask you, were you able to get any more information or response from Mr. Guthrie?
No, I haven't. I haven't reached out again. I will have to do that.
Yeah. And part of the reason is because, if they have done specific testing and they already have the results, I mean, that could save us a lot of time and money, to be able to get the information that they were able to glean from whatever testing they did. So that would be great. Because if not, then that means we get to do it. And, with the goal being here that we want to find out how many bedrooms can actually be put onto that 5-acre parcel, we would then have to do that work on our own. And Bartlett, you've been doing some research on that, right?
I contacted, one septic engineer guy who, does that kind of work, and I have to contact a couple more. He seemed, I mean, I think they, in general, some of them would be willing to come out there and do some test pits and perk tests. One of the issues is, do we want a formal perk test or informal perk test? The test is the same. The documentation is different. If you do a formal one, then the documentation, the inches or inches per minute or minutes per inch or whatever, gets recorded, and you can use that as a design tool. If you get the informal, it doesn't cost as much, but you have to do a formal one before you can do actually a septic design. So I'm not sure which way to go on that. And I'm not sure what we'd actually find. I did get the drawings for the 3 houses that are closest to the Durkee farm on Balsam Lane. The test results for those septic systems were generally very good. They were generally in the 8 or 10 to 3 minutes per inch, which is pretty good. And there is a question, how far do those soil conditions extend onto our property? Because it does vary. One of the houses had right next to a 3 had a 40 minutes per inch test pit. So we will have to do some explorations there at some point to do a thing. So I'm inclined to get proposals from 3 guys and go from there. Get one of them to do the work, and dig some holes, and do some testing.
Right. So that's why I was hoping that Maren could work some magic with Mr. Guthrie and try to get the information that we're seeking if it's already been done.
There is one test pit that I have seen on a map that is in the general area of that field above the barn, but I have not found the results for that test pit.
And generally speaking, it's what, a couple thousand to have somebody come out and do that kind of test?
Yeah, it's a half a day guy with a backhoe and I guess Jim Gareffi has to be there, and yeah, something like that. It's
Okay.
it's not going to break our bank, but it is money.
Yeah, so it's money I'd rather we not have to spend. But
Right.
so Maren, could work some magic, that would be awesome.
I'll certainly ask.
And if it's not possible, then we're going to have to go this route.
Mhm.
And so then the question is, if we do have to go this route, Maren, what is the process for securing the 3 bids? Is that an RFP? What kind of process do we have to go through?
No, just detail the work that we want to have done, to make a list, a standard list, and then call at least 3 different engineering companies and ask for quotes to get that work accomplished.
Okay.
All right. So it's nothing formal that has to be done through the town.
Well, that is the formality, is just asking at least 3 different.
Having that documented. Okay.
Right.
All right, great.
Can
Because
I ask,
go ahead. Sorry, Mark.
do we have to dig a test pit or several test pits, or are we I know we're talking potentially multiple units. Do we have to
No.
I'm not sure how many pits we have to dig.
I'm
And-
not sure either. There's there's a couple of acres up there that are outside of the setbacks. And I would think we'd have to do 2, 3, 4 maybe to find out, pretty definitively what the soil conditions are, so we can actually have somebody tell us you can put a 4 or an 8 or a 12 bedroom system in here, or whatever the number turns out to be. I mean, they're going to have to be confident enough that they know the soil conditions to, figure out, what square footage is available and how, how many units we can actually cover.
Okay. Okay, that was my first question. And my second question is, when we had these numbers, we wouldn't actually be necessarily, we're not, for the formal versus the informal, we're not suggesting exact locations of systems or sizes, right? And
No.
they'd have to go through another review anyway. So is there any real advantage to doing a formal?
Yeah, mobilizing the equipment and the engineer one time rather than two.
Do those have, does the formal commit us to doing something in a time frame?
No.
So they're good forever?
Well, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is part of why I was asking if, Mr. Guthrie would provide that data to us, because it seems like it's probably been done.
Yeah, okay. So if we were to contract with Habitat to do the development and we had the formal, they wouldn't have to go off and do their own.
Correct.
Okay.
It seems like we just need to have it once.
Okay.
So once we have that information, then we as a board can have the discussion about all those ideas that we shared with each other back in January about what we'd like to see there. And we can then finalize on more or less what we'd like to do and start to bring in various developers to be able to discuss the ideas with. That would be the path that seems likely that we would be following.
I do think that that building multiple units there will involve removing the barn, demolishing it, because it's structurally, it has 7 foot floor to floor heights in there, and that's not something that is really conducive to housing.
Well, we shall see in the future what folks have to say. All right. Any other thoughts on that? Thank you, Bartlett, for all of your work in continuing to advance that. So with regard to the ideas that we had, I know that Bartlett has continued some conversations with a group called Common Ground Development. So I just wanted to make everyone aware, for transparency purposes, that I filed a disclosure of appearance of conflict of interest in case we wind up talking with Common Ground Development here at the trust meetings. So Common Ground is part of community teamwork, and in my work at Lowell, I work with community teamwork. So I feel that, I can perform my duties objectively and fairly if they were to come before us. So I turned in the required form to town administrator Duggan, and he filed it with the town clerk. So is everybody good with that? If it comes up? Okay, thanks. Yeah, so Bartlett had been sending me all these emails, and I'm like, yeah, I can't touch those until I do this. So is there any other update from anyone about ideas that you wanted to share for that particular site? Nope. Okay. I do know that Bartlett had requested that we talk about including this particular parcel in the MBTA, and it sounds like that is not possible because it is a town-owned parcel. Is that correct?
So it is possible, but it doesn't expand the district for the calculations. Oh, and I think that putting planning hat on, the town would have to consider if it's easier to pass at town meeting or more difficult to pass at town meeting if you include that parcel.
Yeah, my 2 cents on this is just that I think it's complicated enough as it is without making it part of another project. And so having it as a standalone, I think we have a much greater chance of getting it, what's the right word?
Accomplished.
Yes.
There you go. Because there would be other avenues for permitting a development that was keyed on affordable housing.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I guess since you brought it up, I'll talk about the elephant in the room. You know, we have never involved the people that live in Durkee Farms about what our intentions are out there. Knowing the concerns, that's a good word, concerns that they've had about any kind of development out there. You're talking about 3 houses that are going to be greatly impacted by some sort of project out there. I think sooner rather than later, before we start perking it and moving forward with it, that the people of Durkee Farms need to be made aware that the Affordable Housing Trust is considering developing that piece that they all think is going to be green space and open space.
Yeah.
And see what their thought is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the thought that I wanted to share with everybody is once we figure out what the number is, that then it's appropriate. I mean, because right now everyone's going to ask, well, how many would you build? And we don't have an answer. So, but I think it is appropriate to invite them to our future meetings so that they can hear the discussions that we're having, so they can hear where we are. I did have one call from a resident and I believe Maren provided him the link to the meeting back in January, and I know I haven't heard back from him for any questions that he might have had. But yeah, I agree with you, Mark. It's important to be able to bring folks up to speed. Okay, anything else on Durkee? All right, to Hadawan Road. So on January 19th, Matthew and I discussed his transition from this project to another trust member. So in conversation with Bartlett and Mark Rambacher, asking if either of them wanted to lead this, Mark said that he would like to continue work. So I just wanted to, since we have not had an opportunity to talk about this because our last meeting was January 9th, and I had Carolyn, I think is her name, from Habitat for Humanity calling me. I wanted to make sure that we had somebody for her to talk directly with. So does anyone have any concerns or questions about Mark Rambacher taking the lead on this project?
Other than me?
Hey, you're the one who agreed. Okay. So Matthew, thank you very much for your time and energy spent in getting it to this point. Thank you. So Mark, what can you share with us about the status of this project?
So I reached out to Carolyn Reed at Habitat, and I reached out and talked to her. She's waiting for us to issue the formal RFP. I reached out to Jenny at Town Council, who had concerns with the one specific clause in the RFP. She mentioned having a termination clause, basically that if we were to turn the property over to Habitat and they didn't do anything for many, many years, if we could take it back. So I need to follow up with Jenny to see where it's at. I forwarded her off some of the sample RFPs that Habitat had. And I haven't heard back from her from Town Council, so I'll reach back out and see what's the status is there.
You ask her to please have the language back in time for us to review so that then we can discuss it as a board at our next meeting on March 19th.
I will do that. Yes.
Thank you. So I spoke with Michelle. Actually, before I go on, I'm sorry. Does anyone have any questions for Mark about Tehadawon?
Good luck.
Says the one who said he didn't want to do it. Okay, no questions. So there was a $40,000 donation from Northridge to the town's Browns Woods Gift Fund. And so when I met with Michelle, she thought this funding had already been used for the acquisition of Tehadawon Road, and she was going to confirm that. So that had been mentioned at the last meeting, so I just wanted to provide that information.
Does that 40,000 show up anywhere as money that was received by the Housing Trust?
It doesn't sound like it went through the trust. Maren is saying no.
Then it was not included in the 200,000 that the trust spent on the acquisition of the Brown Woods.
So Maren, what can you say about, or what do you know about this particular amount?
Well, I don't believe it was ever associated with the Housing Trust. I believe it was Conservation Commission, because
Okay.
it's the commission that had led the efforts to put the grants together and purchase the property.
Okay.
Because they were the ones who took it to town meeting.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I apologize to everyone. I did not put a member item on the agenda. I just slipped my mind. So is there anything that anyone would like to share?
I'll start out. I have a couple of things to share. Mara and I met with a potential developer of the 245 Foster Street. The Longs have sold the property to a developer from Cabot and Forbes, and he will be coming probably. We had hoped to have a meeting before our March 7th planning board meeting, but it doesn't look like we can because Delise will be away and Anna will be away, so it didn't make sense to have a formal introduction at that point. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, are they coming? Are they going to be on the agenda for March 7th, Maren?
Yeah, I do have the request to put them on the agenda for March 7th. I said, ask for the information a week ahead of time so that we can stick with that date.
So they made a presentation and they're talking about obviously continuing the process of trying to get the 245 Foster Street on the MBTA as the site for the MBTA mixed multifamily project to satisfy what the governor was asking for. But they also want to take the rest of the land, and they're very interested in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maren, they want to look at age-in-place housing for seniors. They want to look at affordable housing. They want to look at potential daycare out there, some small amenities to go with the train station. So they want to come in and hopefully they'll have some plans and some ideas when they come see us on the 7th about, when I say they're very serious about age in place housing, they've done it before. They're looking at everything short of a nursing home, including dementia care, things like that, as part of a comprehensive permit out there. That there's talk about if we're going to follow up with this, a letter of intent so that we know exactly what they want to put out there, things like that. But it's interesting to see that there's somebody interested in affordable housing, senior housing. They do, what do they have? 4 or 5 MBTA communities that they're in the middle of permitting right now. So they do know how to do it. They know how to get funding for senior housing and affordable housing. So it's an interesting turn of events out there. And I just want to make everybody aware that that there is potentially a different sort of development coming down the pike for that property on Foster Street. And I hopefully we can get some more information on our planning board meeting on the 7th. Also, I have sent my papers back to the town clerk that I am resigning from the Affordable Housing Trust. This will be my last meeting. And one of the reasons I've gotten very busy with some of the stuff that I have to take care of. And I talked to, and I wanted to bring it up earlier, Jeff Yates, who's on the CPC fund, wanted to be on the Affordable Housing Trust as well to kind of help ease the bumps that are in the road between the CPC and the Affordable Housing Trust. So that's what so when he talked to me about it, I said, I've been on it since its inception. I think it's time for somebody else to I've enjoyed my time on the board and I've enjoyed working with everybody on it. It's just maybe time for somebody else to do it. I'll still be on the planning board. I'll still keep an eye on it, but hopefully somebody like Jeff or somebody else on the CPC can take my spot and make it so that it's a smoother transition on that from both those boards. And that's all the information I have right now.
Well, that's a lot of news. So, well, so we only get to see you once. I only get to see you once a month then.
Well, I think we're going to be meeting more than once a month for the planning board. So I think you'll see me more than that, and I'll still be watching. It's just, Jeff had suggested, and it's not a done deal because I guess it's got to go because my appointment was resident at large or something. So I think the board of select board has to appoint somebody, but Jeff is definitely interested in getting on the board, so that would be nice. And anyway, it's been enjoyable. I've enjoyed everybody on it. I think we've done some good work on it. Bartlett did a great job starting it, and Anna has picked up the ball and run with what Bartlett started. So I'm cautiously optimistic that good things will come.
Thanks. Well, thank you for being a part of it from the beginning and for your work in advancing the cause of affordable housing in Littleton, because it's something that you have always championed. So,
Well, now that I've gotten older, I kind of champion senior affordable housing more. I think there's I never, well, I shouldn't say never, always did, but now that with age comes wisdom, I guess. I don't know.
well, I just always remember you saying that, it was something that you had wished that had been around for your own mom. So it's
Yeah,
something that
Definitely. I just remember everybody coming in 20, 25 years ago asking for something, age in place. I always talked about age, staying in Littleton, staying with everybody, all the friends in Littleton, and we haven't done a good job at doing that, and hopefully we can do a better job in the future. But I think the Affordable Housing Trust has been a good start for that, and Who knows? Maybe with all this money the governor is threatening to throw around at us and everything else, we can finally get some senior housing, some affordable housing, and some affordable senior housing. Who knows?
So to your point, Mark, the next steps are for the select board, and we have two members here who can take it to town administrator, Doug in to get it on the agenda so that they can go through the process of appointing somebody new with, and I think it's resident with specific experience. And when Bartlett and I were talking about Durkee the other day, we know that Kim Albertelli is also interested in this particular board, so she might be submitting an application as well.
Good.
Yeah. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And just think about us, that third Tuesday. You could be here.
I will probably sneak in and watch. Not for 2 hours, but maybe for an hour.
So anyone else have anything else you want to share? Nope. I wanted to highlight for everybody the email that Lucia sent. I think it might have been yesterday, if not today, about the CPTC training. And that is the group that provides the annual all-day conference right before St. Patrick's Day or on St. Patrick's Day that has very good sessions. I've been to it every year, I think, except during COVID when we didn't have it. But there are two in particular that I like to point out to everyone. Number 17 is about permitting and preserving affordable units. And number 18 is planning for historic preservation. And so obviously the Durkee farmhouse fits into that category. So if you have an opportunity, Mara and I take it that if anybody did want to attend, the town would pay out of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for them to attend.
Yeah, there are training funds available.
Okay, great. Yep. So if you'd like to attend, what would be the process? Everyone just prepays and then they get reimbursed, or?
Well, actually, this time around, it should be a little easier. If you just register and then send me a copy of your registration confirmation, we'll be able to request a check, get cut straight to CPC for that. So hopefully you won't have to put it on your card and then get reimbursed.
And there's also a plus for the town. Don't we get like some kind of insurance benefit or something?
Yeah, for training like this, the CPTC works with the State Insurance Advisory Board. And so there is a discount if it's shown, well, yeah, if sitting board members attend training like this. So,
yeah. So it's a fun day if you want to go. Breakfast. Last year we had breakfast with Lieutenant Governor Driscoll. She was our keynote for breakfast, and then we had another very informative lunch speaker. So yeah, it's a good thing to do. All right, so on to number 6, our minutes of January 9th. Does anyone have any comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes, January 6th.
All right.
I'll
Bartlett.
second.
And,
Second.
okay. All those in favor, Sue,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Mark Montanari,
Yes.
Mark Rambacher,
Yes.
Angus,
Yes.
Anna's yes. Okay, all those are approved for January 9th. So Maren, could Angus and I get the minutes from Lucia the following week? Because it really helps me to keep on track with what I need to do and what others can do.
Yeah, I'll check with her on her schedule on that, but.
Okay. That would be great.
Mhm.
And Angus is usually really great at being able to go through those minutes and then, like I said, it really helps me keep on track with needs to be done. Otherwise, I'm like, whoa, I forgot to do that. Thank you so much. So then our next scheduled meeting is on.
No, I'm gonna jump on that one for a moment. The next available Stewart's meeting room date for the MBTA Communities Outreach session was the March 19th. So I went ahead and scheduled the MBTA Communities Outreach meeting for March 19th. Have the room starting at 6 till 9.
Okay.
So
So
there,
this means the 3 planning board members on here, or 2 planning board members, wouldn't be able to be at this meeting.
right, and I know the select board was very interested in the MBTA communities work as well. But I believe if I'm recalling correctly, I don't, well, no, I'm gonna say it. I don't recall if there's a select board meeting on March 18th or not. So I don't know if,
There is not currently one scheduled on the 18th.
so if the trust was available to meet on the 18th, that might be an option. Because I realize the CPC meeting is on the 20th.
Yeah. 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 So 18th is good for me. Is it good for everyone else? Okay. All right. So yes. So let's go ahead and make our next meeting then on Monday, March 18th, same time, 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. Great.
Yep.
All right. Well, it looks like we'll be able, that'll still give us enough time then to meet with CPC on Wednesday. And we'll make time for Stuart Saginaw to come in and talk with us about those 2 topics. Is there anybody else that you think we need to be inviting at this point? No. Okay. All right. And I'll make that request. So I think we're done. Thank you. See, less than 2 hours, Mark. Just for you. How's that? Just for-
Thank you.
All
Going to
right.
do your final act, Mark?
That's it. It was very nice. Thank you.
Motion, you going to make the motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Bye, Mark.
Aye, thank you all.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everyone, have a good night.